When a loved baby comes into the world, whether before or after birth, the first question in the hearts of the parents is, will the baby be okay? But the second question is, what name shall we give the baby? A new life becomes a new somebody. If the baby is wanted, then we give him or her a name. If the baby is unwanted, no name is given. The child is nobody, so it can be easily disposed of by abortion, any other means. Oh, that is not a child. That is nobody. No name. A name is the way we human beings acknowledge and appreciate the existence of a person. It's a way of saying this person is precious, special, unique. If you want to know how true this is, just listen carefully to the difference in the way a lover pronounces the name of his or her beloved and the way a prison warden calls out the names of the prisoners during a roll call. No wonder that during the Holocaust, the first thing that the Nazis did to their captive Jewish prisoners was to erase all their names and replace them with tattooed numbers. They eliminated them as persons before eliminating their lives in the gas chambers. Moses was occupied tending his flock to make a living, to survive. Let's not forget his story. In the first reading of today's liturgy, we read about the encounter of God with Moses in the desert. Moses was occupied tending his flock to make a living, to survive. Let's not forget his story. He rose from nothingness to become the prince of Egypt. From nobody, he became somebody with might, with power. But after killing the Egyptian, Moses had to escape into the desert where he became once more a nobody, a hunted fugitive. He was now completely absorbed in surviving his day-to-day ordinary life, just like so many of us who struggle to survive. And this is where the Lord found him. This is where he finds us. God needs to shock and wake us up to his presence by some extraordinary, unusual event. We find so hard to discover what an extraordinary miracle is. Our humdrum, routine, ordinary, boring lives. There is greatness in that. And Moses was surprised when he saw the bush burning fiercely and not being consumed. Isn't that a very apt image of our lives? The mystery of life. God is telling us that in the midst of our fragile, mortal, limited existence, we are promised a life that is endless, immortal, eternal. How can such a fire not reduce the burning bush to ashes? How can anyone survive the challenges, the dangers, trials, the failures that constantly threaten us in our human lives? It is enough to watch the news of the world to see how it is being consumed by this ferocious fire of hatred, selfishness, power struggles, injustices. Humanity is being consumed and destroyed by this fire. And yet, this reading tells us that there is a fire that will not consume the bush, will not consume humanity. the angel of the Lord appeared to Moses in the fire flaming out of a bush. The Spirit of God, that is, God Himself, appears right in the midst of this destruction, war, death, climate change. Hope springs eternal right from the depths of our despair and hopelessness. And Moses emerges from his ordinary day to day roaming in the desert in search for survival to discover that he too can rise up to the higher ground. He can reach the mountaintop. It's there that miracles happen. And he takes the step to look closer. Another journey is beginning. God called him from the burning bush. Moses, Moses. God calls him by name. And finally, he hears someone calling his name with the tenderness and love of a mother, a father, a lover. He rediscovers who he really is. He's not just the lucky baby saved from the river, nor is he the mighty prince of Egypt showing off his might and power by killing the Egyptian slave driver. No, he is not the failed savior, a runaway fugitive with a price on his head. He is Moses. Here I am, he replies, because someone called him by name. He rediscovered his identity, his value, his preciousness. He was born again to become a new person, relieved, saved, and eagerly moved forward to embrace this divine lover who saved him from nothingness, from being nobody. He had just become somebody in the eyes of God, Moses. And God stopped him in his tracks. Come no nearer, take off your sandals, as if he were telling him, don't ever again think that you are valued because you have power. Sandals were a sign of power, riches, status. All these are false reasons to make us humans think that we are worth more than others. And God continues, the ground you are standing on is holy. It is you and your unique preciousness that are making that ground where you are standing holy. It's not the ground that makes you holy. You are precious because you are you and not because of what you have or what you do. Our real name is holiness. Our real name is sacredness. And God tells Moses about his exclusive love for his people and his promises. He wants to free them also from the slavery, not just of Egypt, but of their own unfaithfulness and selfishness. And Moses was absolutely enchanted by the good news for him and his people. He knew them well enough to know how difficult it will be for him to convince them that freedom was possible. How will they believe that he had met God? So Moses went on and said, but if they ask me, what is his name, the one whom you met? What am I to tell them? He wanted a name. He wanted to be able to convince his people that God was someone real. So he must have a name. We want a God whom we can touch, whom we can manipulate in our favor, a God whom we can be sure of, we can identify and touch, a God to serve us and our purposes. And very lovingly and patiently, God challenges us humans. And he replied, I am. And Moses waited for him to continue. Yes, you are what? Whom? And God never finished the sentence. Because God is love, and love never finishes. It is not exhausted with just one, or two, or three, or 100 acts of love. It has all names. It is everybody. It is everywhere. It is eternal. Anything, at any time. No boundaries, no limits for love. No beginning, no end for love. So don't try to lock it up in a formula. Don't try to lock it up in a just one way, that you have to love your wife, you love your child, you love your neighbor. Wherever it comes, love is available to redefine itself. That is God who says, I am. The most important thing is I am. I am there. Yet, you see, God's infinite goodness is not anonymous because he doesn't have a name. God's love is indeed universal, but for us humans, it needs to have a face, to have a name. And he knows that we humans cannot survive any relationship without names, without faces. So one day, God decided to become one of us. And you shall name him Jesus, said Gabriel to Mary. If we can learn how to pronounce that name whenever we meet any one of our brothers and sisters, and pronounce that name, this is Jesus, and pronounce it with sufficient love and tenderness, then we will discover what's in a name, the immense preciousness of every child and daughter of God. God bless you.